Kansas City takes place this weekend, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my exact predictions for how I think every fight on the card is going to play out. So without further ado, let's get this bread and let's get into the picks. As always, I like to look at my past week's performance to see what we can improve upon, and honestly, last week wasn't terrible. We went 8-5, but
the problem is, a lot of people did good on picks because the picks I got wrong were all underdogs for the most part, literally almost all of them. Michael Chandler against Patty Pimblett, I've already waxed about this. Bad pick for picking Michael Chandler. The experience edge was not enough to outlast Patty with that. Then Cedric Dumas, really bad pick. Got knocked down round one. Didn't shoot for a single takedown. He wanted to shoot a takedown. That was no breakdown of the fight. So against that, Cedric. Mitchell also didn't shoot a single takedown. I did shoot a couple. We didn't land anything of significance. I think he didn't even get over 10 significant strikes in the whole fight. So yeah. And then Trajan Gore, he showed signs of success here and there, but he just not throwing the volume. And he just didn't pick the part of the fight. So 4 horrific picks that were all underdogs. You could have 12-13. I was never not picking Sean Wilson. I thought he was just gonna pepper Danny outside and just win the decision. He was kind of doing that. And then he won the first 2 rounds, all 3 scorecards. So I guess he wasn't doing it like I thought he would be doing. Anyways, this is last week's picks. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was terrible. We picked almost every favorite correctly. So that's good. We picked the bulk. Got here. We got down to Grace correct. So let's try to
have some more success. Let's not go to chase underdogs in Kansas City. Let's get into it. First fight on the card, we have Joselyne Edwards taking on Chelsea Chandler. And at this point, if you're picking or betting Chelsea Chandler, there's got to be something off with you. It's not the matchup specifically. It's just that what does Chelsea Chandler really offer in the cage? You go back to her last couple fights. She fought Yana Santos, and she got out-clinched against the cage. Chelsea Chandler is usually the one clinching you against the cage. But against Yana Santos, who's over 40 years old, was the one out-muscling Chandler in the clinch. Then we look at her loss against Norma Dumont. At the first sign of getting hurt, she runs across the octagon and is just never the same throughout the fight. Doesn't get any control time on the ground, anything like that. She fights Josie Nunez, who since then has been knocked out by Priscilla Cachoeira, so there's that. And Josie Nunez was like half of her size, so it was very easy for Chandler to just get takedowns and just win a free decision like that. But let's look at the variables here. Chandler's about to turn 35 years old. Not a good look for the bantamweight women's division. Joselyne Edwards is basically entering her prime. She's about to turn 30 years old, coming off a submission win against Tamiris Vidal, which isn't the most impressive win. Tamiris Vidal, gets finished by almost every bantamweight nowadays. We look at her losses: Aline Perez and Nora Cornoli. Aline Perez won because she initiated takedowns, so I guess that is a path for Chandler, get takedowns here. And Nora Cornoli won by just outpowering Joselyne Edwards in the striking. Chelsea Chandler is not going to do that. Chelsea Chandler's only way to win this is to get takedowns and clinch against the cage and hope that the judges see that as winning minutes, which nowadays I don't buy that. It's Kansas City. It's not the Apex, which means it's going to be a bigger cage. It's not going to help the grappler as much. It's going to help the striker. And in this one, Joselyne Edwards is just the better striker and just is probably going to be better in every facet of MMA here. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Joselyne Edwards by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Timmy Cuamba taking on Roberto Romero. And I understand. Timmy Cuamba, if you look back at his last couple fights, he's kind of, like the video I made recently, he's kind of a nothing burger, all right? Doesn't really have a lot of power on the feet, and his grappling isn't, world class, and his takedowns aren't elite either. So there's nothing really that jumps off the page about Timmy Cuamba. The one thing that I do like is that he went to a decision with Balaji Oki, who has major power for the division, so that's good. And he nearly beat him in that fight as well. He did get clipped early, but I like that he got clipped early and actually turned it into a dogfight as the fight progressed, so I kind of like that. And then also against Lucas Almeida, he got clipped early, and then he turned it into a dogfight as the fight progressed, so I like that as well. This guy has dog in him because he's not just going to falter at the first sign of unsuccess. He will just continue, and he will try to keep winning his type of fight. So in this one, Roberto Romero, 8-4-1, so right off the bat, not a good record. He's okay with losing, 8-4-1. He's only had one fight in the UFC. It was short notice against David Onama, and I think people are gassing that up, all right? So in that one, Roberto Romero lands a knockdown in round 1. Big whoop. That's pretty cool. But then he also gets knocked down in round 1. Then David Onama, whenever he wants to shoot a takedown, he gets the takedown, and Roberto Romero just stays on the ground. So I think Timmy Cuamba has a couple of paths to victory here. I think he can clip Roberto Romero. Roberto Romero is like a leg kick merchant. He's a spinning back fist merchant. He's a high flyer extravaganza merchant. He tries to put on a show, it seems like, based on his fight in the UFC and based on other couple fights that I taped as well. So I think Roberto Romero is too wild for this. I think he's going to be chasing the finish early, and I think Cuamba is the type to outlast a storm early. So I can see a world where Roberto wins the first round, but as the fight progresses, I think Cuamba's cardio is better than Romero's, and I think Cuamba, although it is not in the Apex cage, it's a bigger cage, so it doesn't help the grappler. I think in this specific one, I think Cuamba will be able to get the takedowns. Roberto Romero has shown that his takedown defense isn't that good. He might chase a guillotine and get caught on the bottom. And then if he's on the bottom, his get-up game isn't that good either. Against David Onama, every time Onama got a takedown, Roberto Romero was just laying on his back for the entire time. So for all those reasons, I think Timmy Cuamba has more paths to win here. I think he can win by takedowns, and I think he can win by peppering Roberto Romero on the feet. And I think that Roberto Romero will land something big early, but will fade as the fight progresses. So for all those reasons, Timmy Cuamba by decision. Next fight on the card, I'm not going to bore you with a long breakdown for this one. It's Jaqueline Amorim taking on Polyana Viana. Jaqueline Amorim is coming in as like a minus 500 favorite, and it's very clear what's going to happen here. Amorim does not entertain striking in fights where she doesn't need to. Polyana Viana is a world-class jiu-jitsu artist that is not good at getting submissions in the UFC. Actually, she gets submitted herself in the UFC. She got armbarred by Veronica Hardy, which is not even in her recent fights. She got arm triangle choked by Yasmin Lucindo, and Jillian Robertson was basically having her way on the ground and chose to ground and pound instead of get a submission. So, Jaqueline Amorim, world-class jiu-jitsu artist. All her wins recently are by sub or ground and pound. Ground and pound against Montserrat Ruiz, armbar against Corey McKenna, armbar against Vanessa Demopoulos. Polyana Viana got armbarred by Veronica Hardy. She's susceptible to the armbar. Jaqueline Amorim has great hips. Not sus, but she has great hips where she can twist and just grab the arm and just put you in an armbar. So I think Polyana Viana knows that she needs to keep this fight standing, but for some reason she's just going to shoot a takedown. And as soon as she shoots the takedown, Amorim is just going to snatch the arm and get an armbar. That's exactly how I see this fight playing out. So for all those reasons, Jaqueline Amorim by round 1 submission. Next fight on the card, we have Cameron Saaiman taking on Dana White Contender Series rookie Malcolm Wellmaker. So usually it's frowned upon to take the Dana White Contender Series rookie in his debut against a guy that is well established in the UFC. You know, Cameron Saaiman has wins against Manny Martinez, Terrence Mitchell, Stephen Kozlau. Like, he's been in the UFC for 3+ years at this point. But, you know, the public is now kind of starting to fade him because he got starched by Peyton Talbot. And Christian Rodriguez just basically beat him everywhere in that fight. Like, Cameron Saaiman doesn't have the most power. Cameron Saaiman doesn't really initiate takedowns. There's nothing really Cameron Saaiman does that would make me think he would win a fight against Malcolm Wellmaker. Malcolm Wellmaker, pretty well-rounded based on the Contender Series fights. 8-0. All right, Chase, you know, almost all of his wins are by finish. And if not by finish, he definitely won the decision pretty soundly. You know, he lands with big power. That's the thing about Malcolm Wellmaker. He's good at countering. He sometimes lets himself get backed up to the cage, which isn't the best, but that is to initiate his big power counter. So against a guy like Cameron Saaiman's going to need to initiate takedowns and get this to the mat in order to have a chance to win this. I think if this stays standing, Malcolm Wellmaker is going to outpower Saaiman. He is older by 6 years, but that is a good 6 years. It's not like it's 36 versus 30. It's 30 versus 24. Like, Malcolm Wellmaker is actually entering his MMA prime, whereas Saaiman is still learning, adding more tactics to his game. So in this one, I just think Malcolm Wellmaker's power is going to overpower Cameron Saaiman. Cameron Saaiman, when he fought Peyton Talbot, he was getting overpowered by his power every time. And then when he fought Christian Rodriguez, he was getting overpowered by his grappling every time. So it seems like whenever Saaiman fights someone that excels in one aspect of MMA, that aspect of MMA helps that person win. So in this one, I'm going to go with Malcolm Wellmaker by round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Blackshear taking on Alateng Heili. And I don't believe... okay, so Alateng Heili has one submission loss, I think, in his record. And it was by armbar. And it was on the Chinese regional scene. He's also had multiple fights in the UFC. He's fought grapplers, I believe, like Clayton Rodriguez to an extent is a grappler. Chad Anheliger to an extent is kind of a grappler. And he did pretty well against them. He fought Chris Gutierrez and just got sniped on the feet over and over again with leg kicks. So what is Alateng Heili's weakness? Well, he's not really good with takedowns. That's something. He doesn't get submitted, but he's also not good with takedowns. Blackshear, he's basically showed that he's a glass cannon on the feet, but on the ground, he will most likely get you in a spot where you end up getting submitted. So against Cody Gibson, he just withered him down on the ground, got a Kimura. Against Cody Stamann, Cody Stamann shot a lazy takedown, and that turned into a rear naked choke. Against Jose Johnson, he got a twister on him. Against Mario Batista, he probably should have won that decision. And then also, against Montel Jackson, he just loses in 5 seconds. So Alateng Heili doesn't have the KO power to just starch them on Blackshear, I don't believe. Alateng Heili doesn't have the good takedown defense to stop Blackshear's takedowns. So if this fight gets to the ground, which I envision it happening a little later in the fight, I think Blackshear will find the submission. He's a submission specialist after all. 96% of people are predicting the same exact thing as me. And I don't think, this is a hot take. I'm taking Damon Blackshear by round 2 sub. Next fight on the card, we have Chris Gutierrez taking on John Castaneda. And last time I predicted this, it was a couple weeks ago. And it fell through because I think Gutierrez had an injury or something like that. It was definitely the Gutierrez side that fell through. So it is a little concerning to pick him again, considering he's the side that fell through in their matchup a couple weeks ago. But if you want, I'll just give you a short breakdown. Castaneda can only really win this by initiating takedowns. It's not in the apex. It's a bigger cage. Therefore, I don't think a takedown-only approach is going to help Castaneda win this. I think he's going to have to try to get Gutierrez on the feet as well. Gutierrez is a leg kick merchant. Gutierrez is going to be the bigger guy. He might have the lower reach, but he will be the bigger guy. He will be able to get his leg kicks out there. He has longer legs than Castaneda. His leg reach is longer than his arm reach. So you can't really take reach into account when Gutierrez is only really throwing leg kicks. And Castaneda, I don't really think he has finishing power on the feet, His finishes are only really submissions. He did get Miles Johnson an arm triangle, which is pretty impressive in hindsight. But look at his losses. Daniel Marcos just outworked him on the feet. And Daniel Santos just outworked him on the feet on his way to a KO victory. So I think Gutierrez can actually KO Castaneda here. Castaneda, I think, can only win this by decision. I think that's his only path to victory, but I think Gutierrez can win this by KO or decision. I think Gutierrez I think he's just a better striker overall, and I think this fight's going to stay standing for the most part. I don't think Castaneda's takedowns are going to work. He's not like a super takedown artist, and he's about to turn 34 years old. It's not like he's adding new wrinkles to his game at this point. So for all those reasons, you take Chris Gutierrez by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Evan Elder taking on Gage Young. And so Evan Elder was supposed to fight Ahmad Hassanzadeh, all right? And in that one, I was going to say Evan Elder would win by round 1 or 2 KO. Hassanzadeh looked, at first I was like, oh, Hassanzadeh by submission. That might be a sneaky play. And then I looked into it. I was like, okay, I would be an utter moron to pick Hassanzadeh by submission because on the feet, he's just horrific. Every time he gets hit with a big shot, he just crumbles. And Evan Elder is, he throws with big power. So that was my logic for picking Elder over Hassanzadeh. But now we have a totally new matchup, which is scary a little bit. It's Gage Young, whose only recent loss is against Quinnen Salkeed, who, if you remember, was the guy that starched Anshul Jubilee in round 1 in his fight recently. So in the Quinnen Salkeed fight, Gage Young was actually doing better on the feet, but Salkeed became a takedown merchant and got 11 takedowns on Gage Young. So Evan Elder, the good news is for Gage Young is Evan Elder isn't really a takedown guy. He kind of likes to keep fights standing, and he likes to kind of stand and bang at certain points. I think, though, Evan Elder will be the bigger guy. All right, Evan Elder is the one that has a fight camp for this fight. It's hard to predict Gage Young to win, He's only plus 190, so I'm kind of thinking, okay, Gage Young plus 190. Hassanzadeh was plus 300. So Gage Young definitely has a better chance to win here. I'm trusting Evan Elder's prospect star power. All right, I know he did lose to Nazim Sadikov. I know he lost to Preston Parsons. But Nazim Sadikov just completely made it a dogfight on the feet, which I don't know if Gage Young is going to be able to do that. And Preston Parsons made it a complete grappling match for 15 minutes, which I don't think Gage Young is going to do that either. So on the feet, I think Evan Elder is going to have more power. I think he can potentially knock out Gage Young. Gage Young's never been knocked out before, but I think he could potentially do it. He could be potentially the first one. I think Evan Elder just has more paths to win here. All right, fight camp, more power, and even sneaky takedowns in his back pocket. I think Evan Elder can go to takedowns. I think he will go to takedowns. That's the smart move in this fight. Gage Young got taken down 11 times by Salkeed. So for all those reasons, short notice fight as well. Usually in short notice fights, there's not really a finish at a high clip. Don't quote me on that. The sources trust me, bro. So there's that. Evan Elder by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Matt Schnell taking on Jimmy the Brick Flick. So at first, when I saw this matchup, I was like, oh, this is free money. Jimmy Flick is going to get knocked out by Matt Schnell. Duh. Jimmy Flick doesn't know what he's doing on the feet. So therefore, at the first exchange, Jimmy Flick is just going to get knocked out. That's what I first thought. And then I was like, He went to a decision with Nate Maness. What possibly could have happened in that one? Well, in that one, Nate Maness was landing some good shots on the feet, but it ended up turning into a clinch ground battle for the whole 3 rounds. So if that were to happen here, Matt Schnell is getting submitted. If this fight hits the ground, Matt Schnell is getting submitted. It's that simple. Matt Schnell has 1 knockdown. One in his UFC career, and it was against Brandon Royval. And when he knocked down Brandon Royval, they scrambled, and eventually landed in a spot where Matt Schnell got submitted by a guillotine from Brandon Royval. So I think even if Schnell were to knock out Jimmy Flick out cold, I think Jimmy Flick will still somehow revive himself and get a leg lock, get some type of knee bar, get some type of guillotine, rear naked choke. You know, Jimmy Flick is 15-0 to the submission. So I'm not sure what people think is going to happen here. 43% of the 70 are saying Matt Schnell by KO. 50% are saying Matt Schnell by finish. I'm not sure how Matt Schnell wins this by decision. I'm not sure at all. What, maybe he knocks down Jimmy Flick and doesn't engage on the ground? Well, then at a certain point, he's going to have to engage on the ground to get the finish. Not really sure what happens there. Jimmy Flick is a submission guy, you know. He beat Malcolm Gordon and Cody Durden by random flying triangle chokes, which is crazy. His losses are ground and pound. Matt Schnell's not going to be good at ground and pound. Matt Schnell is going to ground and pound and do one bad throw and get his arm in an armbar. That's Matt Schnell for you. You can't take Matt Schnell at minus 350. What are we talking about? Especially against someone that has a clear path to win, which is submission. And he's submitted someone better than Matt Schnell, Cody Durden, already. So for all those reasons, I'm taking Jimmy Flick by round 1 sub. Next fight on the card is the weirdest fight on the card. It's one of those fights that I just simply have no idea what's going to happen, and I have no idea how to predict it. I'm just going with the sheep, the hive mind of tabology, and it's Ikram Aliskerov taking on Andre Muniz. Andre Muniz hasn't fought since Jung Park, and in that one he should have lost. He really should have lost this. He got like 12 takedowns in that fight and just should have lost. Just wasn't landing any damage whatsoever when the fight hit the ground. And if he lost this fight, he probably wouldn't even be in the UFC. And I think that's why Ikram is such a huge favorite. Is because Muniz, at this point in his career, 35 years old, he's probably not UFC level. All right, I know he has some wins, over Uriah Hall and Eric Anders, but he's a submission-only guy. He's similar to Jimmy Flick, except we're at middleweight now, and, middleweights have way more power than flyweights. Ikram is coming off his second career loss, which is Robert Whittaker knocked him out. It was short notice, guys. All right? It was short notice. I picked Ikram in that fight. I know I did. But it was short notice against Robert Whittaker. Like, are we going to say that Andre Muniz beats Ikram because he lost on short notice to Robert Whittaker? I don't think so. The thing is, Muniz has a path to victory here. Just shoot for infinite takedowns and try to get the back of Ikram. Maybe that will work. I might even bet Muniz by submission. Just throw a little sprinkle on it. Because this fight is so confusing. It's crazy. Muniz is the bigger guy. He has a 2-inch reach advantage, a 1-inch height advantage. He has more UFC experience than Ikram. He's fought the better guys than Ikram. He's beaten better guys than Ikram. So, in theory, you should be picking and betting Andre Muniz. But, with all that being said, this fight is just so confusing because Ikram has showed to be a killer in every fight other than the Whittaker fight. Literally every single one. So, for all those reasons, I'm leaning towards Ikram finding a finish. I might bet Muniz, though. I might actually do that. But for the pick, we're going to do Ikram Aliskerov by round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Randy Brown taking on Nicholas Dalby. And in this one, Nicholas Dalby, 23-5-1. I don't believe he's ever really been finished. I don't think so. You can quote me on that, actually. He's 40 years old, which is not good. And I think in this one, it's just going to be a matter of size. Nicholas Dalby, when he wins fights, he's not really finishing. It's just decision. I know he does have that win over Gabriel Bonfim, but I'm chalking that up to Bonfim being a prospect and, expecting to win in round 1 and not winning in round 1. So Randy Brown, UFC experience, they both have tons of it. So what usually has won Dalby fights recently is he has more experience. Well, that's not the case here. What usually has won Dalby fights is he's fighting someone of a similar size. That's not the case here. Randy Brown has a 5-inch reach advantage, 4-inch height advantage. What usually has won Dalby fights is he's fighting someone that's going to try to take him down. That's not the case here. Randy Brown's going to keep it striking, and if anything, he's going to keep it at range, and it's going to frustrate Dalby to the point where how does Dalby even win this? I don't understand how Dalby wins this. Clinch it against the cage. He's not going to out-volume Randy Brown. He's not going to outpower Randy Brown. And if this fight somehow gets to the ground, there's no chance he's going to out-jiu-jitsu Randy Brown. He's long and lanky. He has those long arms. I can even see Randy Brown winning this by submission. I might actually bet Randy Brown by submission here. You know, I don't really see Dalby getting knocked out fully. I do see a scenario where Dalby gets knocked down, but then maybe Randy Brown jumps on him and gets the neck. So that's something I can see happening. So Randy Brown also is coming off of a split loss to Brian Battle, a fight that he should have won. He should be on a 4-fight winning streak. And his only loss recently is Jack Della Maddalena. And now I'm in the darkness. So for all those reasons, give me Randy Brown by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Michel Pereira taking on Abus Magomedov. And I'm going back and forth on this fight. You know, every time that I've switched my pick on the fly while I'm recording, it actually works out almost every time. And right now I'm doing that right here. Michel Pereira, I'm picking him to win. All right, I think there's a lot of recency bias for picking Abus Magomedov. And I think everything just lines up to pick Abus Magomedov, and I'm avoiding all the traps. I'm just dodging and weaving through the traps. I'm not picking Abus Magomedov, all right? You know, Bruno Ferreira, he won by getting takedowns, okay? Who else? Warley Alves, he won by getting takedowns. So you might think, logically speaking, Fluffy Hernandez just took Michel Pereira down 11 times. Abus can win this by getting takedowns. But the difference is, number one, this is not in the Apex, and Michel Pereira fought Fluffy in the Apex, and that might have caused Fluffy to get easier takedowns, smaller cage. That's number one. Number two, Michel Pereira has not been really controlled like that by any fighter he's ever fought, and the only time that it's happened is against a current top 5 middleweight, so there's that as well. And Abus Magomedov has shown that when he can't get the takedowns, he will lose. You know, Kai Baralho he barely shot for a takedown, lost a clean decision with striking. Sean Strickland didn't shoot for a takedown, gets gassed out, loses in the striking. Dustin Stolfus, he didn't shoot for a takedown. Granted, it was like a 1-minute KO, but then also keep in mind, Abu sometimes just doesn't shoot takedowns. He's not takedown first. He's striker first. So if he's striker first against Michel Pereira, I think there's a high chance that Michel Pereira finds the finish, and he finds it early like he has been against almost every other contender he's fought other than Fluffy Hernandez. Ihor Peteria, round 1. Mikhail Olajaychuk, round 1. Andrei Petrosky, round 1. I think Abus Magomedov is going to fall into that category. You know, he hasn't shown that he's super durable, and he hasn't shown that he can maintain a wrestling pace for 3 rounds. I picked Abus at first because I was like, oh, he's got takedowns in his arsenal, of course. But now that I think about it, power for power, Pereira wins. And if Abus doesn't get takedowns, it's going to be a long fight for him. So I'm going to actually predict a finish here for Pereira. And I'm going to say, round 1 would be egregious, right? So, okay, we're going to go Michel Pereira, round 2 KO. Next fight on the card, we have Giga Chikadze taking on David Onama. And this is another one. I had David Onama selected. I did. And I just changed it right now to Giga Chikadze. Changed it from the favorite to the underdog. And let's just look at the variables for a second. The reach is the same, all right? But Giga is a couple inches taller. So when they actually square off in the octagon, Giga is going to be the much bigger guy. Now, when it comes to durability, Giga is not going to get knocked out. And David Onama has shown that he has a proclivity to get chinned. You know, he doesn't get knocked out per se, but he definitely gets knocked down. He definitely gets put into spots that he doesn't want to be in on the ground. You know, Giga Chikadze against Arnold Allen won the first round clean. Clean first round win. And Arnold Allen really only won because he started initiating takedowns, initiating wrestling. And I think that's the same logic that you would have for picking a David Onama. David Onama, oh, he initiates takedowns. He activates the wrestling when he needs to. But the thing is, that's not like his strong suit. Arnold Allen, his strong suit is getting the takedowns and the wrestling. David Onama, that's not really a strong suit. David Onama is more of a well-rounded MMA fighter that wants to stand and bang first, get takedowns later. And I think against Giga Chikadze, he's just going to struggle on the feet. I think Giga is the more well-rounded striker. I think Giga actually has more power than David Onama. I think if anyone were to get knocked out in this fight, it would be David Onama. You know, Giga has shown that his chin is very, very strong. Went 5 hard rounds with Calvin Kattar. Arnold Allen was landing some big shots on the feet. Alex Caceres, super tricky striker, was able to outlast him for a decision, 30-27. And Edson Barboza, one of the trickiest strikers in the division, he KOs him himself. So, if David Onama gets takedowns and initiates wrestling, yes, that is a path to victory there for him. But if the takedowns aren't working, if Onama decides to not even shoot the takedowns, bigger cage, it's not in the apex. If this is striking for more than 50% of the fight, that is in favor of Giga. So, I'm taking the dog here. I actually think this is my first dog pick of the entire video, which is kind of crazy. We're going to go over it later, but I'm taking Giga Chikadze by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Anthony Smith taking on Mingyang Zhang, and I'll keep this breakdown very short. Mingyang Zhang, every win that he has, I believe, or every finish he has not been outside. It's only been in round 1. So Anthony Smith has shown that when he's going to fight a power puncher, he's going to crumble at the first sign of adversity, honestly, when it comes to power. You know, I'm not saying Anthony Smith's a quitter. That is not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying if Mingyang Zhang hits Smith with a big shot in the first minute, Smith is going to be like, oh, shoot. And, like, there's no reason for Smith to win this. Mingyang Zhang is the up-and-coming light heavyweight prospect. He's on the come-up. 92% of people picking this fight have Mingyang Zhang by KO. I'm assuming majority of them also have Mingyang Zhang round 1 KO. I'm not really sure how to break this down other than maybe bet Anthony Smith by sub. Maybe he pulls something out of the hat like he did. Like he did against Vitor Petrino. You know, maybe that happens. But he's not winning a decision against Mingyang Zhang like he did against Ryan Spann. No way, no how. There's no way he's winning any striking exchanges against Mingyang Zhang. The only way Smith wins this is if this fight somehow gets to the ground. And even then, I don't even think he'll win this. So, for all those reasons, Mingyang Zhang by round 1 KO. And that brings us to the main event of the evening of Kansas City. We got Ian Machado Garry taking on Carlos Prates. And in this one, yeah, guys, I'm not taking Carlos Prates, all right? I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm taking Ian the Cuck Garry. That's goddamn right. Let's look at Carlos Prates. He passed the Neil Magny test, which is good. That was considered a 5-rounder. I believe he finished in round 1 or even round 2. So, yeah, passed the Neil Magny test. That's good. Good and all. But you know who else passed the Neil Magny test? Ian Garry. So, that's number 1. Number 2, Li Jingliang knocked him out on the feet. Pretty impressive. Li Jingliang, though, not the most durable guy. So, there's that. Charles Radke, kneed him to the body, made him collapse. But then again, Charles Radke, what is he really offering on the feet? Not much. Trevin Giles won the first round against Prates, then goes out there and gets starched in round 2. So there's that. Mitch Ramirez wins the first round against Prates, goes out there and gets starched in round 2. So, if you're picking Carlos Prates, the only way he wins is this. KO round 2. That's the only way he wins. That's literally the only way I can see Carlos Prates winning. I don't see Prates winning in round 1. And if it leaves round 2, I don't think he's winning in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Carlos Prates is a serial round 1 dropper, and he's a serial round 2 KOer. That's just like the game of Carlos Prates. So in a 5-round fight against Ian Machado Garry, Ian Garry has shown in his recent fights that he has more wrinkles to his game. He's willing to go for takedowns. He's good at grabbing the back. And ultimately, I'm changing my pick to Ian Garry round 4 sub. I think if this stays standing, yeah, there obviously is a huge chance Prates can land the KO blow on Garry. Garry has shown in a few of his fights that he gets clipped. You know, Kenan Song clipped him. I think Jordan Williams clipped him. I think Jeff Neal clipped him. Michael Page clipped him. Everyone that he fights recently has been clipping him. So I don't hate picking Carlos Prates, but the fact that it's a 5-rounder with a crowd, first time Prates is in a 5-rounder in front of a crowd. Let's keep that in mind. Ian Garry has already fought in a couple in front of a crowd. Definitely was against Shavkat in front of a crowd. Lost 48-47 against the number 1 contender in the division other than JDM. Ian Garry just has more ways to win. You know, Prates has a 4-inch reach advantage. Ian Garry is the taller fighter, though. He's going to look bigger. Ian Garry has the wrestling and grappling upside. We haven't really seen Prates tested in that area. And the only time we have was against Mitch Ramirez. And Mitch Ramirez landed the only takedown he shot and got 2+ minutes of control time in that fight. I think Ian Garry knows how to win this one. Like, you know, against Shavkat, it was a tall task. You know, beating another undefeated guy is kind of hard to do, especially when the guy has all his wins by finish. So Ian Garry, his game plan against Shavkat wasn't bad. He just lost the first 3 rounds and ended up winning the last 2, I believe. So in this one, Ian Garry, shoot for takedowns, activate the wrestling, try to keep this at range, utilize your leg kicks, and I think Ian Garry wins this. Just got to be locked in for 25 minutes, avoid the big shot of Prates, and I think you win. I think this fight actually plays out similarly to Lerone Murphy versus Josh Emmett. Hear me out. I think, Carlos Prates is kind of like Josh Emmett, where he's looking for the big shot. Ian Garry has more finesse in his striking. Ian Garry initiates the takedowns and stuff. Carlos Prates might even shoot a takedown, if he's really struggling on the feet, which, But all those reasons, I think Ian Garry more paths to victory. I think he's even the better striker than Carlos Prates. Might not have more KO ability, but I think he's overall the better technical striker. And just that's basically the whole breakdown. Ian Garry, we're going to take him by... the thing is, I think Ian Garry actually can get the submission. But we'll just play it safe. Ian Garry by decision. I said that I would show you all my picks just to see real quick. So we got Ian Garry, favorite. Chikadze, first underdog. Let's see here. Aliskerov, Flick, underdog number 2. And then yeah. Cuamba, underdog number 3. He's kind of the underdog. So we have 3 underdogs picked on this card. I think we're in store for a good one, guys. With that being said, have a great rest of your day. You savage.